There was a knock at the door. It was Stanley Roper, looking uncharacteristically nervous. He managed to usher Jeanne and Chrissy into the kitchen, leaving him alone with Jack. "Tripper," Stanley said, lowering his voice, "do you enjoy living here?" "I love it, Mr. Roper. The ambience, the plumbing that only moans on Tuesdays." Right. Listen, I got a niece visiting. Karen. She's a girl. Jack nodded slowly. "That's usually how nieces work. I want you to take her out tonight," Stanley blurted out. "Since you're, artistic, I know she'll be safe with you. Like sending her out in an armored truck." Jack hesitated. "I'd love to, Mr. Roper, but it's Jeanette's birthday." Stanley's face fell. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled bill. $50, Tripper, and you can use my car." Jack's eyes widened. $50 in 1977 was a small fortune. It could buy a lot of groceries, or even pay back some of the borrowed rent money. But more importantly, if he said no, Roper might get suspicious. "Deal," Jack said. 10 minutes later, Karen walked into the apartment. She didn't look like a Roper. She had long, dark hair, eyes that could melt lead, and a dress that seemed to be held together by pure optimism. Jack's jaw hit the floor. He looked at the $50 in his hand, then at Karen, then at the kitchen door where Jeanne and Chrissy were hiding. He realized, with a sinking feeling, that his safe reputation was about to be put to the ultimate test. Chapter 2. The Freeway Fiasco. The date with Karen was not what Stanley had envisioned. By the time they hit the freeway, Jack realized that Karen wasn't looking for a safe escort. She was looking for a wild night in Los Angeles. So, Karen said, leaning toward Jack as he wrestled with the steering wheel of Stanley's ancient sedan, "My uncle thinks you're different." Jack coughed, his hands gripping the wheel. "I have a very sensitive soul, Karen. I cry at commercials for fabric softener." "Is that why you haven't tried to kiss me yet?" she asked, her voice a low purr. "I'm driving. Safety first. The California Highway Patrol is very strict about romantic displays at 60 miles per hour. Suddenly, the car groaned. A plume of white steam erupted from the hood, obscuring the windshield. Jack cursed, pulling the car onto the shoulder of the freeway. The radiator blew. Jack sighed, stepping out into the hazy night air. Stanley's car is as reliable as his fashion sense. For the next 3 hours, Jack didn't play the role of the romantic lead or the safe friend. He played the role of a frustrated mechanic. He used his shirt to unscrew the cap, scorched his fingers, and eventually walked a mile to a gas station to get water. By the time they got back to the apartment, Jack was covered in grease, sweat, and shame. Karen was bored and agitated. "You're the most frustrating man I've ever met," Karen snapped as they walked into the Ropers' living room. "I fixed the car, didn't I?" Jack protested. Just then, Stanley walked in. He saw Jack disheveled and Karen looking upset. His mind jumped to the only conclusion a man like Stanley Roper could reach. "Tripper, what did you do to my niece?" "Nothing. The car overheated." "I don't believe you. You've been acting normal. I can smell the masculinity from here." Stanley shouted, "Pack your things. You're out." Jack retreated upstairs, heart pounding. He told Jeanne and Chrissy the news. They were devastated. But within the hour, a miracle occurred. Karen, feeling guilty, told Stanley the truth. Jack had been a perfect gentleman. In fact, he had been too much of a gentleman. Stanley, relieved that Jack was still safe and embarrassed by his niece's aggressive behavior, apologized. Jack was allowed to stay. To celebrate, Jack used the $50 he earned to buy back a cameo necklace Jeanne had pawned months ago to pay the rent. It was a small victory, but in apartment 201, small victories were the only kind they could afford. Chapter 3: The Canine Conspiracy. A week later, a new problem arrived in the form of a four-legged furball. Jack's friend Larry Dallas, a used car salesman whose morals were as questionable as his leisure suits, had a problem. "It's a puppy, Jack," Larry said, thrusting a small, whimpering golden retriever mix into Jack's arms. "My girlfriend's cat hates it. If I don't find it a home, it's going to the big kennel in the sky." Jack looked down at the puppy. It licked his nose. It was over. "We can't have a dog, Jack," Jeanne said firmly when he brought it inside. "Rule number 1 of the lease: no pets, no children, no fun." But look at her eyes. "Jeanne, she's a minority. We have to protect her," Jack pleaded. Chrissy was already on the floor, letting the puppy chew on her hair. "We'll call her Flower, no. Daisy, no. Meatloaf." "We are not calling the dog Meatloaf," Jeanne sighed. "And we are not keeping her." But they did. For 3 days, they lived in a state of high-alert espionage. Every bark was muffled by a pillow. Every walk was conducted under the cover of darkness. Then came the night of the sleepwalking. Chrissy Snow was a girl of many talents, but her most dangerous one was her tendency to wander the halls of the building while fast asleep. Usually, it was triggered by stress, and keeping a secret puppy was the ultimate stressor. At 2:00 a.m., Jack was awakened by the sound of the front door clicking shut. He ran to the hallway and saw Chrissy, dressed in a flimsy nightgown, walking toward the stairs with a glazed look in her eyes. "Chrissy, wake up," Jack whispered, catching her just as she nearly tumbled down the steps. He guided her back inside, but the puppy had followed them. In the confusion, the puppy slipped out of the apartment and wandered down to the Ropers' door. The next morning, the building was filled with the sound of Stanley Roper screaming, "A dog! There's a dog in my hallway!" Jack scrambled downstairs. He saw the puppy sitting on Stanley's morning newspaper. Stanley was holding a broom like a bayonet. "Mr. Roper, wait!" Jack yelled. Thinking fast, Chrissy stepped forward. Oh, it's a gift. A surprise anniversary gift for Mrs. Roper. Helen Roper, who had just walked out in her house coat, gasped, "For me? Oh, Stanley, you remember